Hello everyone, welcome to Ghana ICT Club Code with Kwaku. If you are new here, please consider subscribing to this channel. And if you've already subscribed, thanks for showing up. Okay, in this episode on Code with Kwaku, we are going to learn about how to develop a login form using HTML and CSS. So if you've opened your Visual Studio Code, you come to, I already have my folder created already. So let me show you. I created a folder and named it as login. Okay, so after finished creating the folder, I came to File, then Open Folder. Then I navigated to where my folder is, like so, open. Then I selected the login folder. So that's how come it shows here. In my login folder, I have two image files and an HTML file and another folder. So quickly, let's create our index page. So to do that, click on the new file icon here, then you name it as index.html or login.html. It depends on however that you want to name it, but I'll make mine index.html. Okay, then I'll need another file for styling, so I'll create another file and name it as style.css. That will hold our CSS files. Okay, so back to the index page, I'll just create my HTML structure. And to do that, in VS Code, you can just type the exclamation mark followed by the tab key. It will insert the HTML structure for you. So that's why I always say VS Code is the best when you want to code. Okay, so once I have my structure, I'll change the title to login page. Then I will link my external CSS file by just typing link, then style.css. That's all. So when I'm done with linking my file, I'll just come inside the body and start creating my form, my login form. So first of all, I'll wrap the form in a div container, and I'll give that div container a class name of container. So that will wrap my form. Okay, so after creating the container, I'll create my form tag, and in the form tag, the action will lead us to admin.html. That is why I created that file, this file. So all that this means is that when someone clicks on login, it should load the admin.html page. Alright, then I have to add another attribute called method. So what should be the method of posting, or the method to use? And we have two types of methods. We have post and get. Post will post will post to another page, and get will rather put the details that you filled in the form in your browser. Okay, so in our case, we will just use post. The method will be post. Okay, then I need to create a title. So I'll use an A2 tag to create a title, login form, or a heading. That's heading for my login form. Alright, then the next thing is to wrap all the input fields in a div called class form group, or in a div with the class name form group. So I'll just type div dot form group. VS Code will, after that, then you press on tab. VS Code will complete the code for you. So this is how the structure will be. So when I'm done with the basic structure, I will now create my forms, and I'll wrap each of the input fields in another div container, and this div I'll call it form input. Okay, so very simple. So now I can create my form input, and the type is text, and the name is username. Name simply means you are giving your input field a name called username, because that form or that field will take a username as a value. Then I'll create a placeholder for it. Placeholder will tell the user what to type in that field. So I'll just write type username. So I'm done with my first input field, which is the username. Then I can do copy and paste starting from here, because I'll use the same class. So you can copy up to this point. Right click, you copy, then you click just here. That is where, let me comment here. Okay, so I hope we remember how we comment in the end of username field. All right, so I'll come below that, and there is the start of username field. Let me comment that section too. Okay, all right, so start of username field. All right, so just below end of username field, I'll paste what I copied and change the type to what? Password, because that field will take a password as a value. Then I change the name to either p-word or password. Name is just like you are just giving the form a name, and this name is very useful when you are developing the backend, because you call the name when you insert or you enter a value. Then here will be enter password. Very simple. So let me copy this and paste here, end of password field. Then here will be start of password field. So comment is very important in programming or in coding. All right, so it's left with our button or our submit button. So to do that, I can just use the button attribute, or I can use an input. So to create the submit button, I can use the button tag, or I will just use the input tag, and the type will be submit. Then I'll give it a class of button btn. I'll just make it btn. Then I'll give it a value. Yes, a value of login. So here by default the button will have a value of login. Then I will wrap this button in a div as well, and I'll give that div a class of submit dash btn. Okay, submit dot btn. So I'll just cut my button input field and put it inside the div. So basically this is how the structure of your page will look like. Very simple. All right, so let's save this and look at the output in a browser before we style it. So now this is what we have. So we are done with the HTML part, and we are going to style it with the CSS part. Okay, so let me bring these two texts below the button. Okay, so make sure that you move out of the form group closing div, and just before your closing form tag you type a P, and in the P you name it at you type not registered. So if the person is not registered, he or she has to fill a form first. So just type not registered, then inside the P you create a span an inline span attribute, and inside the span you create a link. So please watch how I'm creating this inline tag. Okay, all right, so this is the span, then this is your. So if the person is not registered, you have to provide a text for the person or a link to a registration form. So I'll just write sign up. We don't have that page yet, so I'll just use a hash sign to represent the link. Then I'll just do copy and paste. I'll copy the P tag, paste below it, then change this to forgotten password. So if the person has registered but then has forgotten his or her password, you can create a link to a reset password page. Okay, so this is how the whole structure of the form, the login form, will look like. So let's run it and see in a browser. Okay, so there is the text. So not registered, you just click on sign up to register. Forgotten password, you click on reset password to reset your password. So basically this is the HTML structure. Okay, so quickly let's style it. So we head straight to the style file that we created. Then inside the style file, first of all, let's create a reset. By default, the browser will automatically apply CSS to your page. So you see that there is a gap here, but we don't want the browser to automatically apply styling to our page. So to get rid of that, we will just use star into brackets. So we don't want any margin, so margin 0 pixel, padding 0 pixel. Then we don't want border, so by default the browser can give elements that need border. So to get rid of that, you just type border none. So when I save this and go back into our browser, you see that everything is pushed to the extreme edge of the browser. So we will apply the styling that we want, and you also see that our input, the borders around our input field is also gone, but we will style it, so don't worry. Okay, so when we are done with resetting the browser, we now come to the main styling. So first of all, let's style the body. Okay, no, let's skip. We will come back to the body. Let's start with the container. Okay, so the container was a class, so you type dot container, then all that we will give our container is margin of 50 pixel. So let's see its effect. It will push the content away from the edges of the browser by 50 pixels. Okay, then let's come to the form, the main form. Form is, we are calling the direct form tag, so we don't need any period. You just call form. Then with the form, we will give it a padding of, let's say, 100 pixel. You can play with the pixels to get an effect that you want, but in this case you make it 100 pixel and a margin of also 100 pixel. Let's save and look at its effect. Okay, so this is the effect that we have now. All right, and we will call our h2 text and give it a text. We want to align the text in the center, so we call the text align property and give it a value of center. So our P will move to the center. Yes. Then not registered and forgotten password too. We want it to move to the center. So let's quickly, we can add P here. Yeah. So when we add P here, those ones will also move to the center. All right. So, or you could have typed P, then style it text align center, but this will help you to go faster. So we want our H2 and the P to be at the center. Okay, so we are done with H2 and P. Now let's style our form group, the class form group. So you bring your period, you type form group, then you give it a style. So we will style the form group with a padding of 10 pixels at the top, 30 pixels at the left, 20 pixels at the bottom, and 270 pixels at the right. Let's save and see its effect. Okay, so this is how our form will look like. All right, now let's also style our form input class. Okay, so that one too, we will give it a margin of 20 pixels. Let's see its effect. Yeah, so the we just created a margin between the form fields. We gave it a 20 pixel margin in between the username field, the password field, and the login button field. Okay, so quickly let's now target the inputs. Okay, so first of all, we will call the input tag, followed by we will call the attribute type. The first one is text, comma, input again. Then we call the password attribute type is password. Okay, all right, so we are going to style both the password and text input field, and we'll give it a height of 30 pixel. That's the height of the text field. Then we will give it a width of 50%. This applies to the field, the input field. Then we give it a padding, that is inside the field. We want to have a padding of 5 pixel top, 10 pixel left and right, and 5 pixel at the bottom. Okay, then we don't want it to have a border, so we will give it a border of none. Now let's check the effect now. Okay, this is how it will look. All right, then let's give it, we want to make the background transparent. Background transparent. That is, we don't want the input field to have any background color. Okay, then we give it a box shadow, that is shadows around the input field, 1 pixel to the top and bottom, 1 pixel to left and right, and we give it a blur of 3 pixel followed by a color of EF. Let me save and let's check its effect. Right, so now this is how our input field is. So you see the box shadow around it. The box shadow property creates these shadows. Then the height is between the top and bottom line of the input field. Then the margin is inside the field. Okay, so what else can we apply to? Then let's give it a color of white, that is the text that we type inside the input field should be white. By default, when you type, is black, but we want it to be white because we will give it a background. So let me refresh and type. You see that you don't see the text because it's now white. Okay, so I think we are done with the input type. Now let's target the button. Okay, so we give the button a class of btn, so we just call that class btn. Then with the button we give it a background color of black. Hex code for black is 6 zeros, hash, then 6 zeros. Then we give it a width of say 20%. Okay, then a padding of 5 pixels to the top, then 10 pixels to 5 pixels to the top and bottom, then 10 pixels to the left and right. Then we give it a font size of, font size is the text on the button, so we want it to have a font size of 18 pixels. Then we give the font a color of white. No, white is FFF6, or you can just write F3, it will work. Okay, then we give it a margin left, of say 95 pixel. That is, we want to push the button to away from the left side by 95 pixels. Okay, then lastly, let's style when we hover over the button using the pseudo class hover. So when we move the mouse on the button, we want it to have a gradient kind of style. So linear gradient of 2 to right. We want to have red to right and black to left. Okay. Then we also wanted to have a border radius, that is the edges around the button should have a curve of 5 pixels. You can play with the figures and choose what suits you. Okay, so I think we are done with styling of our login form. So when I refresh, this is the effect that we have now. When we hover over it, you see that it changes to red and black gradient. Then the edges too, you can see that it has changed. It is curved in by 5 pixels. So this is how our form will look like. But then we want to give it a background. So let's quickly go to our body. We skipped from the body. So just before the container, let's call the body element. Then we give it a background image, URL into brackets. We will use night.jpg. Then background repeat. We don't want it to repeat, so no repeat. Then background attachment. We want it to be fixed. Fixed means when you scroll, the image shouldn't scroll along. Then a background position. The position, we want it to be in the center. So background position center, or you can say center. All right. Then, okay, let me save and let's look at the effect now. Okay, so this is how it will look. But I want to create a blend with a red color. So to do that, let's go back to our body, give it a background color, a background color of red. Then introduce this attribute, background blend mode multiply. Okay, so these two properties will give us that red blend. Okay, so let me save and refresh the page. Right, so this is what we want, a very nice background with a transparent login form. Very beautiful. But let's change this color to white. The black doesn't pop. So to do that, you go to your, and we also change this text because it's not visible. So to do that, we go back into our codes, we head to the A2 and P, then we give it a color of white. You can type white or hex code FFFFF 6 times. So let me refresh. Wow, so you see how beautiful our form is looking now. So if I type my login details, admin, then I type password, when I click on login, it will load the admin.html page, welcome body. And this is possible because in the creation of the form, we gave it an action of admin.html. That means when we click on login, it should load this page. Very beautiful. So basically, you can create this beautiful login form for your project with just CSS and HTML. So that's the beauty of CSS. You can use it to style your page nicely. So this is the transparent form field. By default, if this, let me show you. This background transparent is giving that transparent effect. When I comment on it and I refresh the page, you see that by default you get a white background, but we don't want that white background. That's why I introduced background transparent property. So I think this is beautiful. Imagine you do this for someone in a project. It's very beautiful. Okay, so not registered. If the person is not registered, clicking on this will take the person to a sign up form, but because that page is not created, that's why it's not taking us anywhere. Then if you've forgotten your password, you just click on reset button, then you are done. Okay, so after styling our web page, we need to also style it to look nice on small screens like mobile phones and tablets. Let's look at something. Now when we inspect this page and look at a preview on phone, this is how our website will look like. Okay, so to make sure that it looks very good on phone, we need to style it using the @media query. So to do that quickly, you create your @media query. @media means on different media screens. Okay, so maximum width of say 720 pixel. That is up to 720 pixels. We want the form to have a padding of 10%, 10 pixels, then a margin of 10 pixels as well. That's 10 pixels top all sides. Okay, then we want the form group to also have a padding of 10 pixels top, 30 pixels left, 20 pixels bottom, and 10 pixels right. Okay, then let's also style the input types. So input type text and input type password. Okay, should also have a width of 100%. And lastly, let's style the button. So you call the button class width of say 50% and margin left of 55 pixels. Margin left. Okay, now let's save this and run in our browser. So when we come to the browser, this is what we will get. Very beautiful. Okay. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please show some love. Subscribe to Ghana ICT Club YouTube channel. You know, it's a project that is organized freely to train people. A lot of people want to learn programming, but then Ghana ICT Club is bringing it for free, and videos will be released weekly. So if you follow our channel, if you subscribe and follow it very well, within some few weeks you should be able to build a website and start making money. Okay, see you in the next lecture. Thanks for watching, and please do well to subscribe to this channel. Bye.